She was my best friend, until she married my father. I'm your stepmother now, she whispered at the wedding. I just stood there, in shock. A month later, I found out that it all started long before me. I had always believed in the power of friendship, in the way that it could pull you from the darkest moments of your life, wrapping you in warmth and making you feel like you weren't alone. Claire was that kind of friend, the kind who listened when no one else would, the kind who knew your deepest secrets without judgment, the one who made you believe that no matter what, you'd never be betrayed. I had known Claire for over 20 years. Ever since we were little girls, we had shared everything, our dreams, our fears, our laughter, our tears. She was the sister I never had, the person I trusted with all my heart. There were moments when she seemed to know me better than I knew myself, and I had always been grateful for her. But looking back now, I can see the cracks in our friendship, the subtle shifts I ignored. They were small at first, like the way Claire started to spend more time with my father after my parents' divorce. I had been wrapped up in the wreckage of my family, trying to pick up the broken pieces, and I hadn't noticed how close Claire had become to him. My father, like most people, wasn't perfect. He had always been distant, too focused on work, and my mother had suffered because of it. Their marriage crumbled slowly over time, the cracks so deep that by the time they were official, it was almost a relief. I knew my father cared, in his own way, but he wasn't always there when I needed him the most. When Claire started coming around more often, I didn't think twice about it. She was my friend, and she had always had a way of cheering my father up when he was feeling down. I used to joke about how they seemed to get along too well, but it was just a joke, right? One evening, about a month after the divorce, I came home late from work to find Claire sitting on the couch with my father. They were laughing about something, some inside joke that only the two of them shared. I stood in the doorway, my heart tightening as I watched them. "You're home early," Claire said, flashing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Everything okay?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just a long day." I didn't mention the nagging feeling in my chest. I didn't say anything about how unsettling it was to see my best friend and my father acting so familiar, so comfortable together, but I noticed it, and that was the first time I thought, something's off. The days that followed felt like a haze. Claire's visits became more frequent, and the conversations between her and my father grew longer. There was a shift, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Claire would lean in when my father spoke, laughing a little too loudly at his jokes, gazing at him with a look that was a little too intimate. I tried to brush it off, but every time I caught that look, a cold feeling crept down my spine. I still trusted her, though. I convinced myself I was just being paranoid. After all, they were just friends, right? It wasn't until the invitation arrived that everything changed. I was sitting at my kitchen table, scrolling through my emails, when I saw it, an envelope, thick with elegant stationery, addressed to me in my father's handwriting. At first, I thought it was just another one of his long, rambling letters about his life or a reminder about some family event he wanted me to attend, but as soon as I opened it, I felt the air leave my lungs. The invitation was for a wedding, my father's wedding. I blinked, the words on the page blurring together as I read them again. "You are cordially invited to the wedding of your father, Robert, and Claire Thompson." It didn't make sense. I reread the invitation several times, each time hoping that it was some kind of mistake, but it wasn't. Claire, my best friend, was marrying my father. I stared at the paper, the cold sensation in my chest now fully consuming me. I felt like the ground had shifted beneath me, like I had fallen into some deep, endless pit. I had no words. I couldn't breathe. How could she? How could both of them do this to me? The two people I trusted more than anyone else in the world had kept this secret from me. They had lied. And for how long? 4 months? Years? The thought of it made my head spin. My hands trembled as I placed the invitation back down on the table. I was suddenly aware of the sound of my own heartbeat, pounding in my ears. Everything felt wrong. My life felt wrong. For the rest of the evening, I couldn't think straight. I went through the motions, pretending that nothing had changed. But inside, I was unraveling. Every time I looked at Claire, I saw the mask of friendship, the warm smile, and the loving gestures, but now, all I could see was a betrayal, a deep, raw betrayal that I couldn't escape from. It wasn't just the fact that she was marrying my father, it was the fact that she had kept it a secret from me. She had known all along and had said nothing. What did that mean? How long had this been going on? As the days passed, I found myself avoiding her. I didn't want to confront her, not yet. I couldn't look at her without feeling the rage bubbling inside me. She had become a stranger who had taken something that wasn't hers, something I could never get back. The wedding was fast approaching, and I knew I had to go. I knew I had to face this head on, but how could I walk down that aisle, stand there, and watch her marry him? How could I pretend everything was fine when inside, I was crumbling? I had to find out the truth, and I had to do it before the wedding, before it was too late. How long were you planning to lie to me? I whispered to myself as I stared at the invitation in my hands, feeling the weight of the truth pressing down on me. It felt like the world had shifted, and all that was left was me, standing on the edge, waiting for the moment to fall. The days leading up to the wedding were a blur, and each one felt like a slow burn. I couldn't focus. My mind kept circling back to the invitation, their wedding. It taunted me, a reminder of the treachery I hadn't yet confronted. I couldn't understand it. How had they kept this secret from me for so long? How had they looked me in the eye, hugged me, laughed with me, and never once mentioned that they were planning to marry each other? Claire had always been the one to support me. She knew everything about me, my fears, my weaknesses, and I had never doubted her loyalty, not once. But now, when I saw her, when I spoke to her, she felt like a stranger. I couldn't bring myself to look her in the eye. Every time I did, I saw that smile she used to wear so naturally, that smile now twisted with something dark. I didn't even know how to begin to ask her. I didn't know where to start. What was there to say? The truth was already too loud to ignore. I began to avoid her, making excuses for every time she called or tried to meet up, but she kept pushing, showing up at my door, calling me in the middle of the night, trying to hold on to the image of the friendship we once had. Each time, I felt a knot tighten in my chest. I had to confront her. I just didn't know how. That night, I finally did what I had been avoiding. I went to see my father. He was sitting in the living room, his hand resting casually on the armrest of his chair. The familiar, comforting sight of him was gone. Now, I only saw the man who had betrayed me. I forced myself to take a deep breath before walking in, knowing full well what I had to do. "Dad," I started, my voice cold, betraying none of the fury boiling inside me. "I need to talk to you." He looked up, his brow furrowing slightly. He seemed surprised, though I wasn't sure why. Wasn't it obvious that this conversation was coming? "Of course, sweetheart. Come sit down," he said, his voice calm, as if nothing in the world had changed, as if I hadn't just found out the woman I trusted most was marrying him. I sat down across from him, my fingers gripping the edge of my seat. It was hard to keep my composure. Everything I had ever known about him, the way I had seen him as a strong but flawed man, was being ripped away. "Dad," I said again, my voice shaking slightly, "why didn't you tell me about Claire?" His face faltered for just a second before he cleared his throat. He looked uncomfortable, like he was trying to find the right words. "I didn't want to upset you," he said quietly, not meeting my eyes. "We didn't think it was the right time. We didn't want to hurt you, honey." My chest tightened. The pain of his words was almost more than I could bear. He wasn't even looking at me. How could he say that? Didn't want to hurt me? Was this really about sparing me pain? Or was it about hiding his own guilt? I stared at him for a long moment, waiting for him to meet my eyes, but he never did. His eyes were trained somewhere else, anywhere but on me. "You lied to me," I said finally. the words leaving my lips like a punch. You both did. For how long? How long have you been hiding this from me? From the moment Mom and you got divorced? He looked up at me then, his eyes soft with regret. But that was all. It wasn't enough to erase the hurt. It wasn't enough to make me feel like I mattered, like I was more important than the secrets they had kept. We didn't want to make it harder on you. We wanted to make sure everything was right before we told you. I laughed bitterly, unable to hold it in anymore. Right? You think this was about what's right? His silence only deepened the wound. There was no apology, no remorse in his voice, only a weak excuse wrapped in false concern. I stood up suddenly, my emotions threatening to drown me. You don't get it, do you? You've destroyed everything, and you don't even see it. I walked out, my mind spinning in chaos. I wanted to scream, to punch something, but all I could do was hold it together long enough to escape the suffocating weight of his indifference. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Claire. I stared at it for several minutes before I opened it. We need to talk. I don't want things to be weird between us. You're my best friend, and I need you there tomorrow. The nerve. How could she think that I would want to show up at their wedding? The thought of seeing her walk down the aisle, knowing what I knew, was unbearable. But at the same time, I needed to confront her. I needed to hear her say it, to hear the truth come out of her mouth, raw and unfiltered. I couldn't let her have the upper hand anymore. I needed to take control. I had promised myself that I would go, that I would face her and my father, but a part of me wanted to scream, to stop it all from happening, but I couldn't. I wouldn't back down, not now, not after everything they'd taken from me. The night before the wedding, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. How had everything changed so quickly, I wondered. I had to confront them both tomorrow, but what if the truth broke me? What if, in my rage and hurt, I couldn't keep my cool? What if all of the years of trust, of friendship, had been nothing more than lies? And what was left of me if that trust was gone? I barely slept that night. My thoughts were a constant torrent of rage, confusion, and heartbreak. I had imagined this day 1,000 times in my mind, but never once had I thought it would end like this. The image of Claire in her wedding dress, standing at the altar with my father, haunted me. The morning came too soon. The sun was hidden behind thick clouds, the sky overcast, as if the heavens themselves mourned the events that were about to unfold. I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me, the heaviness of the day, the uncertainty of what would happen when the truth finally came out. I dressed mechanically, slipping into the same old dress I had worn to countless family gatherings. But this wasn't a family gathering. This was betrayal. The invitation still lay on my desk, the elegant calligraphy mocking me, reminding me of everything that had been hidden. You are invited to the wedding of Claire Richardson and Thomas West. I didn't know what hurt more, the fact that Claire had betrayed me or that my father had allowed it to happen. I had spent my entire life thinking of them both as constants, people I could trust, but trust had turned into something ugly, something twisted. I arrived at the venue an hour early, my heart pounding in my chest, my body stiff with the anticipation of confrontation. The grand hall was filled with guests, most of them strangers, people I didn't know, didn't care to know. They were all here to celebrate a lie, a wedding built on deceit. The moment I stepped inside, I was bombarded by a rush of memories, family holidays, old laughter, the way things used to feel before everything changed, before they changed everything. I felt sick. I couldn't be here. I didn't belong in this place, not anymore. But I couldn't leave either. There was something in me that needed to see it through, to watch as the lie played out in front of my eyes. I walked to the back of the hall, slipping into a quiet corner where I could observe. My eyes scanned the room, searching for Claire and my father. It didn't take long to find them. They were standing together, talking to a group of people, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. There was Claire, looking radiant, her face aglow with happiness. Her dress was stunning, white, delicate, almost angelic. a sharp contrast to the anger seething in my chest. She looked so perfect. It was nauseating. I had to swallow the bile that rose in my throat. And then there was my father, standing beside her, a proud smile on his face, the same man who had raised me, who had taught me how to ride a bike, how to throw a football, the man who had promised me that family came first. He had lied, to me, to us. My eyes burned as I watched them, but I wouldn't let myself cry. I wouldn't let them see me break, not now, not after everything they had taken from me. I wasn't sure how long I stood there, lost in the crowd, before I saw Claire approach. She saw me immediately, her face lighting up when she recognized me. She waved and walked over, her steps light and carefree. "Hey, you made it," she said, her voice bubbling with excitement. "I'm so glad you're here. I was getting worried." I forced a smile. Why was she acting like everything was normal, as if nothing had changed, as if she hadn't just torn my world apart? "I'm here," I said, my voice barely a whisper, thick with emotion I couldn't disguise. She didn't notice, though, or maybe she didn't care. "I'm so happy you came," she continued. "It's going to be the best day ever. I hope you like everything. You know how much I wanted this day to be perfect." I nodded, my eyes flicking to my father again. He was watching us from a distance, and when he caught my gaze, he gave me a small, tentative wave. His smile was tight, strained. He knew. He had to know I was on the verge of falling apart. But I couldn't show it, not in front of her, not in front of him. "I need to talk to you," I said suddenly, my voice stronger now, the anger beginning to rise. She blinked, surprised by my abruptness. "What's wrong?" "I need to know the truth, all of it, now," I said, my voice shaking with the force of my restraint. "How long, Claire? How long have you and my father been together?" Her face fell, the smile slipping from her lips. For the first time, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, guilt, but it was fleeting, buried under layers of practiced calm. She started to speak, but I cut her off, my voice hard. "Don't," I said, my tone sharp, "don't you dare lie to me. I've seen the way you two look at each other. I've seen the way you've both kept this secret from me. How could you, Claire? How could you betray me like this?" She took a step back, her face paling. "It's not what you think. Please, just let me explain." "No," I shouted, the words louder than I intended. The room fell silent, heads turning to look at us, but I didn't care. "You married him, Claire. You married my father. Do you even realize what you've done? What you've taken from me?" Her eyes filled with tears, and she reached out to touch my arm. "Please, just..." I jerked away. "No, I won't let you hide behind tears. You've hurt me enough." There was a moment of silence, heavy and thick with all the things we couldn't say. My chest was tight, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I felt like I was suffocating. Before she could speak again, I turned away from her. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand the sound of her voice, the pity in her eyes, the lies she was about to spill. And then, without warning, the music began. It was time. I stayed in the back of the room, hidden in the shadows, watching as Claire walked down the aisle. My heart was pounding, my throat tight. I couldn't tear my eyes away from her. But as she reached the altar, something inside me broke. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. This wasn't how any of it was supposed to turn out. I turned and fled the room, the heavy, suffocating air pressing in on me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I had to get out of there. I didn't know where I was going. My feet moved on their own, carrying me through the cold, empty corridors of the venue. The muffled sound of the ceremony echoed through the walls, but it felt so far away, like it belonged to another life, one I no longer recognized. The wedding was happening. The farce was unfolding before me, and I was just a witness to the destruction of everything I held dear. I found myself outside, standing in the garden, the chill of the wind biting at my skin. It was ironic, really. How something so simple as the cold air could feel like a relief. The physical pain, sharp and unyielding, was easier to bear than the emotional weight crushing me from the inside. The sound of heels clicking on the stone path interrupted my thoughts, and I turned. It was Claire, her face pale and streaked with tears. She had followed me out. "Please," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm so sorry." I met her eyes, but I didn't feel anything. No anger, no pain, just numbness. "I don't want your apologies," I said quietly, my voice detached. "You've already destroyed everything." Her breath hitched, and she stepped closer, reaching for my hand, but I pulled it back, holding myself together with all the strength I had left. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I didn't want it to happen this way. I never meant to hurt you." I stared at her, the words almost tasting bitter on my tongue. "You did hurt me, you just don't care enough to admit it." "I do care," she insisted, "but you have to understand. It just happened. It wasn't planned. Your father and we were both so lost, and we found each other in the most unexpected way. It didn't mean we didn't care about you." I shook my head, fighting the sting in my eyes. "You found each other, Claire? Is that what you call it?" "No, you used each other. You've both been lying to me for so long, and I was too blind to see it. My entire life has been a lie." Her face twisted in pain. "That's not true. It's not a lie. We love each other, and we didn't want to hurt you, but we couldn't deny what we felt." I laughed, but it wasn't a sound of amusement. It was hollow, bitter. "You couldn't deny it? And what about me, Claire? What about the years of friendship we shared, the trust one placed in you? You were supposed to be my best friend, my family, and you did this to me." Her shoulders sagged, and for a moment, I thought she might finally break, but then she straightened up, wiping her tears, her expression hardening. "You don't get it. I didn't do this to you. Your father did. He's the one who pushed me away for so long, but I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I couldn't keep pretending to be happy, pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't." I took a step back, my heart racing again. "I don't care what he did. It doesn't excuse what you did. You betrayed me. You've ruined everything." She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, I heard the faint sound of the ceremony progressing again. The minister's voice was muffled, but I could hear the word husband in the distance. I closed my eyes, a sharp pain searing through me. Husband. I looked at Claire, this woman who had once been my closest friend, and I realized that the Claire I knew no longer existed. This was someone else, someone unrecognizable, someone who had taken everything I held dear and turned it into ashes. But the worst part, the part one couldn't escape, was that I had no one left. Not really. My father had made his choice, and Claire had made hers. In that moment, something inside me snapped. The numbness fell away, replaced by a burning, cold clarity. I was done with them. I was done letting them tear apart everything I had worked for, everything I had built, every shred of trust one had left. "I'm not the same person I was when I came here," I said, my voice colder now, harder. "And you should never have made me come to this wedding. You should never have dragged me into this web of lies." Claire looked at me, her face contorted with guilt and sadness, but it wasn't enough. Nothing she said would ever be enough. "Don't follow me," I added, my eyes locking onto hers. "This is over, Claire. I'm done with you." I turned and walked away. I didn't look back, not once. The reception was nothing but a blur to me. I stayed hidden in the back of the hall, watching from the shadows as Claire and my father danced their first dance as husband and wife. The music was slow, the lights dimmed, and everything about it screamed wrong. This was supposed to be my moment too. I was supposed to be included in their happiness, in their family, but all I felt was a deep, hollow ache. But I wasn't weak anymore. I wasn't the girl who would let herself be consumed by their betrayal. I would do what was necessary to make this right, to make them understand the cost of their lies. As I sat in the corner, I overheard snippets of conversations. People were talking about my father's second chance, about how happy he looked, how Claire had changed him. They spoke as if everything was perfectly normal, as if they didn't know the truth, but I knew, and I wasn't about to let this lie stand. I watched them for a few more minutes before I stood up and walked out. The cold air hit my skin again as I stepped outside, and I pulled my coat tighter around me. It wasn't over yet. It wasn't over by a long shot. I wasn't going to let this pass, not without making them feel the weight of their actions. The weeks after the wedding felt like a blur. Everything was the same and yet completely different. I moved through life mechanically, going through the motions at work, seeing friends, pretending to be fine, but deep down, I knew nothing could ever be the same. I had once thought of Claire as family, my closest ally, someone I could trust with my life. Now, all I saw when I looked at her was a shadow of the betrayal she had delivered, and the hollow face of a man who had never truly been my father. In the quiet moments of the night, when I was alone with my thoughts, I could almost hear their voices, Claire's soft laugh and my father's deep, reassuring tones. I could still picture them together, holding hands, laughing, whispering, but I also heard the cruel words they had whispered to each other in my absence, the words they never said aloud to me, but which cut deeper than any knife. The lie was still there, hanging in the air like smoke that refused to dissipate. But I wasn't going to let them win, not this time. I spent the next few weeks preparing, not with fury or wild emotion, but with cold, calculating precision. They had taken everything from me, but I wasn't going to lose myself in rage. I would make them pay, not with violence, but with their own actions. I knew Claire and my father thought they had won. They believed they were untouchable now, their lives entwined in a new chapter. They believed that I would quietly disappear, that I would just accept the life they had carved out for themselves. But they were wrong. I had learned too much during the years I had spent watching them, the years spent listening to every confession, every secret shared in whispers when they thought no one was around. The pieces of their world had never fully fit together. There had always been cracks, and I had always been too close to notice, until now. I knew exactly where to strike. The first step was simple, an unassuming phone call. "Hi, it's me," I said, keeping my tone neutral, professional. "I need to talk to you about something regarding the family business." I could feel the shift in tone on the other end of the line. Even though they tried to mask it, it was Claire. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice tight. She probably thought I was calling to beg for an apology or offer forgiveness. She didn't know I had a plan. "I have some information I think you'll find interesting," I replied. "I know about the trust your father left you, about the accounts, the properties, the investments." There was a moment of silence. I could practically feel her trying to work through the words in her mind, unsure of what to say. "You shouldn't be asking about things like that," she said finally, her voice dropping into something almost dangerous. "I'm not asking," I answered coolly. "I'm telling you. You're going to want to be careful. There are a few things in those documents I don't think you want to be made public." It was a threat wrapped in calm precision. "You don't have anything," she replied, but I could hear the shakiness in her voice. "I know about the bank accounts your father never mentioned. I know about the contracts you've been hiding," I said slowly, drawing out each word, letting it sink into her consciousness. Claire, who had once been my closest friend, now had nothing left to hide behind. She had deceived, betrayed, and destroyed. Now, I would turn everything she had built into ashes. The next day, I called my father. I let him answer the phone first. He had no idea what was coming, no idea what his own flesh and blood was about to do to him. It wasn't a conversation I was looking forward to, but I knew it had to happen. "Dad," I said quietly, "we need to talk about what you've done." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. He was trying to find a way to respond, trying to figure out how to get out of this. "I don't know what you think you know, but this isn't," he began, but I cut him off. "Don't lie to me, Dad. I know everything. I know about the accounts you've been hiding, the money you've been siphoning off for years. I know about the investments you've made with Claire, and I know about your second family. His breathing hitched, and I could hear the tension in his voice as he realized what I had learned. You don't know what you're saying. I do, I said calmly. I've seen everything, and I'm not going to let this go. I'm going to make sure the truth comes out. Every last detail. I heard a sharp intake of breath from him. He was scared now, and it was the most satisfying thing I had ever heard. Please, he begged. You don't understand. This isn't what you think. This is all just complicated. Complicated? I repeated, my voice cold. No, it's not complicated, Dad. You just made a choice, and now, it's time for me to make mine. I'll make sure this becomes public. Everyone will know about your secrets, and you'll lose everything. He didn't respond, and I hung up, feeling the finality of that moment settle deep in my chest. It took weeks for everything to unravel. Slowly, but surely, the cracks I had exposed began to widen. The trust accounts were audited, the hidden properties discovered, and the lies Claire and my father had built began to crumble under the weight of their own deceit. The media found out. Legal documents were filed. It didn't take long for everything to come to light: the affair, the stolen funds, the secret marriage. The public turned on them, and their world imploded. They had no choice but to deal with the fallout. I never showed up at the courthouse, never showed my face in the chaos that ensued. I stayed away, distant and cold, watching from the sidelines. I had made my move, and I had done it with dignity, with strength. I had finally taken back control of my life, and in the end, that was all that mattered.